What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Daniel Erwin. This is Carolina Ballistics and Training Academy. You guys could be anywhere in the world today. You guys chose to be with us, and we appreciate that. Let me introduce you to us, our co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. David Harris.
What's up, what's up?
And our guest host, Miss Brie Neville.
What's up? How's it going?
She is she's no stranger to Carolina Ballistics and Training Academy. She is literally the web designer. So all that cool stuff that you see on our social media, on our websites, Brian is literally the one that makes that happen. We appreciate that so much. Brie, give us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what led you from where you came from to where you are now.
Well, what's up, guys? Like you said, my name is Brie. I'm the web development lead over here at Carolina Ballistics. And gosh, where do we start? We go all the way back to childhood, starting growing up in a very strict religious household. Nothing about firearms, didn't know anything about firearms. And the only exposure was neighborhood shootouts,
Wow.
or different things we were exposed to like that. So the only thing we knew about guns was to fear them. We didn't know that there was any positive side to it. Then growing up, dealt with some situations myself that I got into where I was a victim of various things. And then that led me into victim support, victim advocacy, and learning that there's a lot of people out there who just don't know how to protect themselves, don't know how to start protecting themselves. And then I found myself in a situation where after a bad relationship, was being stalked, was threatened, my life was threatened, my child's life was threatened.
Wow.
And out of fear for my life, I turned to firearms thinking that was going to be the answer.
Wow.
And then in that, learning and being educated on how to actually use firearms, and now that's where we're at now.
Wow, that's an incredible experience. So this really brings us to the theme of this show, and that is the rise of women in the 2A community. Since 2021, women have literally represented 22% of firearm ownership, and it's growing. Women are really starting to want to be armed in connection with their own self-defense. And I think that's incredible. What do you guys think is the reason for the rise of women? It's not like women have recently been oppressed. It's been an ongoing thing. But now we live in a unique space and time in which they are really, really looking into their own self-defense. What do you guys think is the reason for that?
Well, I guess I can start answering that. I mean, I think we spoke before about some other statistics as well, that in 2020, 8.4 million people bought their first firearm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And half of those people were women.
Yeah.
And in that time, there was a lot of uncertainty about where the world was going because of the pandemic. There was a lot of fear, and people were acting out. There's a lot of looting because of the political climate. There's a lot of violence, and women were trying to figure out, how do I protect my home? How to protect my kids? What do I do when I go out?
Yeah.
I think fear and also just wanting to be better prepared for what could potentially come led to a lot more women being interested in firearms.
I think I agree with you there. My question, and I mean, this is going to be, I guess, a long-winded question, is how much do you think that the rise of firearms being bought, and I would say urban, and we all know urban, just another way of saying black communities, but urban communities, like poorer communities, with the defund the police and all that stuff, I thought that, the personal opinion, had a huge part to play in like people buying more guns, because they were like, hey, if police aren't coming into here to actually do it, I have to protect myself. And I thought that might have been a reason too. Do you agree with that or no?
I actually completely agree with that. Our family dealt with police brutality, and the one thing we saw a lot of was people weren't trusting the police to handle situations because the people that we loved who were dying at their hands. Now, right or wrong, yes or no, but at the end of the day, I think in our community, we started to feel like we had to step up.
Yeah.
Men and women, we had to step up more. Now, were guns always in the community? Yes. Were they legally in the community? No. Were we trained how to use them? No. And that's the problem. We weren't trained. You just had a gun. You saw somebody on the TV show, and they didn't know what they were doing. And so most people were buying guns and not being trained. So now I see a rise of people actually wanting to know, how does a gun work? How do I use a gun? And that's what I like to see in our community.
I agree with that.
Sure, for sure. We touched on it last week a little bit. David he grazed over the conversation in connection with the rise of like single parent households and women having to feel that they need to be capable of defending their home. Do you think that that has had a significant influence on women purchasing firearms?
So I grazed over it because it wasn't about the topic that day, but I'm going to get deep into it now that we're actually discussing it. These are beliefs. My belief is that because of the divorce rate is 70%, 70, 80%. Well, let's be on the generous side, 70. It's like 72. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, okay, divorce rate 72, 80% of the time. So 8 out of 10 times the woman initiates divorce. 8 out of 10 times, let's say 8 out of 10 times the woman gets the child. The system is set up for the woman to get the child, right? So the women are going to get the child. I agree with that because I don't have the patience. My wife can deal with them. I don't. But so I agree to kids. So, but I also know that now you're taking me out the house. So when you take me out the house, when the noise happens, who has to get up and check on it? You're not gonna send a child, right? Even a single man and woman with no kids, the man still is going to be the one to go outside if you hear something. Right. Everything's 50-50 until that time comes. Then it's not 50-50. Well, I can do the dishes, then you should be able to go check the noise. But no, that doesn't. I'm joking. But I think that's some of the reasons is that because of divorce rates and because now that you have single women in homes by themselves, and let's be honest, we say community this, community that, but we're not living in a community because community honestly means I'm not robbing from you.
Right.
Like your neighbor's not breaking in your house because we're a community. We're taking care of each other. Well, so we're not a community because if I'm willing to shoot up your house and don't care who I hit, then I don't care about this community.
And I think that that is a reflection of really the time that we're living in now. My parents used to talk about, my parents was raised in like the hood of North Philly. And they would always talk about, they would have like rent parties in which they would have like a block party and everybody would pay for each other's rent or whatever. But we're not in those times anymore. And I feel like a lot of times people don't even know who their neighbors are. You know what I'm saying? I live in a military community and, people come and go all the time. There are times in which I have a neighbor that lives right in front of me and I've never spoken one word to them. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm interested, and one of the reasons I'm happy you're on is because I could say my opinions, but it's nothing like a woman saying her opinions from a woman's point of view. Like I'm just speculating.
Yeah, and I mean, this is actually one of the things that I was thinking about on the drive, even down here, was as a single mother, what led me to want to get a firearm? Because the reality was I was always afraid to have a gun in the house.
Yeah.
With little kids around. It's fun. It's a toy. They see it on TV. They want to play with it. And we know what happens when kids play with guns. So in my mind, it was don't get a gun, no one dies. The reality was when I went through my situation with the bad breakup, no one was there to protect us. And how do I defend myself? I had a knife. Wow. What's a knife going to do? It has to be close to me for me to do that. Yeah. But that was my preferred method of defending myself was collecting knives. Well, that's not going to protect me when the man busts through my door and my kid, is on the other end. So that notion that single parents are now trying to figure out how do we protect our homes, absolutely. At the end of the day, who am I going to call is going to get there fast enough? Nobody. True. By the time I call the cops, even if they're there to protect me, by the time they get there, the damage is already done.
Exactly. Yeah.
So true. In my mind, it was, all right, educate yourself, educate your kid, get the firearm in the home, figure out, how can we live with this? How can we protect ourselves?
Yeah.
Just as simple as that.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible point to highlight. I think that's one of the most realest of responses I've heard in connection with the truth, that nobody is going to be there to protect you during a crisis. You know what I'm saying? We can call 911, you know what I'm saying? But they're going to get there 5-10 minutes later. Mm-hmm. So during a crisis, an important point for all Americans to understand and to accept that they are their only response to a crisis.
Your first response, definitely.
You're your first response to a crisis, absolutely, and that's a huge point that it takes a lot of people a hard time to break. I went through a minor crisis of myself, and then I joined the military, and I realized that the only one that's going to save you is yourself. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a really big point, and I think a lot of women are getting to that point, in that they're not necessarily relying on somebody to save them, and they're
And that's that, what do we call it? Like that princess mentality?
Yeah.
You know, where it used to be, 50 years ago, you had to have a husband to get a bank account, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, what a woman needed a man for was substantial. Whereas now, everybody's an independent woman these days. Like, we don't need a man for anything. But if you don't need a man, you need somebody to protect you. Yeah. And if you're not going to have them there, you got to protect yourself. Yep. So I'm not, when I tell someone, hey, a firearm is a good option to have in your home, I'm not promoting violence. I'm not telling you to go out here and shoot somebody for any reason. I'm promoting your life.
Yeah.
And you have to be the biggest advocate for your own life. That's one way to do it.
Nobody's gonna care about you more than yourself.
More than yourself. You don't love you. Why would they?
Why would anybody else? So, a couple of statistics that I thought was really, really interesting in connection with robberies. More than half of all robberies are happening to people under the age of 25, and 75% of them that are happening to other women. That is an incredible realization that we're living in. 75% of robberies are happening to women. That is a crazy statistic to grasp. So, with that tidbit of information, if we know women are more likely to be the victim of a crisis, it would only make sense for them to do what they can in order to protect themselves and their families. What do y'all think about that?
I'll be honest. I think from a criminal's mindset, I guess it'd be easier target. Mm-hmm. That's probably why women are more on the rise.
Oh, absolutely.
Why? Absolutely. Because as a man, I would assume there is probably women that will jack me up, but I will assume that I could take most. Yeah. So when I say that, I assume I could I assume that that's the same thing criminals thinking. Mm-hmm. Is he's thinking that's an easier target than attacking a man. Sure. Now I would say, does a firearm automatically stop that? No. Yeah. It won't, but it gives me an advantage. Like I told you on the last time, I believe in carrying a gun everywhere you can. Yeah. And I also believe where if you're going to carry a gun in situations where you can't, you still just got, like in schools or around places, that's against the law, like to carry them on school properties and all that stuff. And if you're going to do it, be a big boy and deal with the consequences if someone calls the cops and be like, hey, you had a gun on this. I wasn't going, I'm not a bad guy. Mm-hmm. Well, but you knew this was against the law, so now you need to deal with the consequences of that.
That's a big point about firearm ownership. We talked on it last week about just owning a firearm doesn't necessarily make you more proficient. It makes you more dangerous, as we already mentioned. We also, let's delve into another reality in connection with criminals. Most criminals operate on the basis of opportunity. If you are perceived as a lower risk or a higher reward, lower risk, a criminal is more likely to take you as the objective target. You know what I'm saying? That's basic criminality right there. So if you have two houses, in one house there's a single mom living in there, and another house has a family of 5, the criminal is going to be like, I'm gonna take on that single mom.
Because the biggest issue is that person, most women are not aware of their surroundings. Yeah. Most women don't care about anything. We just don't know. Mm-hmm. A man is going to walk into a room and he's going to look for all the exits. Mm-hmm. He's going to look for a way out. He's going to sit near the door. If we're in a hotel room, he's going to sleep on the side near the door. A man is naturally going to want to protect. Now, a woman, we want to protect, but we don't think in terms of the dangers around us like that we don't see. So typically a woman, we get out the car, we're not looking around like someone could be there to mug us. Yeah. It makes you an easier target because we're generally not aware of our surroundings, and that's where the training comes in. You gotta learn those things.
Yeah, that's a great point. So Brie, tell us a little bit about our program in connection with the Women's on Target. Why is that useful, especially for our targeted community there?
Okay, so the Women on Target program that we're launching for September 24th and 25th is a 2-day program. Introduction for women, whether you have experience with firearms or not. You can come in, it's a community, it's other women there to support you, so you don't have to feel someone's going to be there mansplaining and making you feel uncomfortable. But also, if it's your first time, if you don't have a firearm, you can come, you get familiar with different types of firearms and then learn. And like we said, education is the most important part of owning a firearm or any weapon for that matter. So this is a way to get the education, get training, and also get your questions answered. A lot of people have fears and have questions. You can come to this Women on Target class and really get those questions answered, get you comfortable on the range, get you comfortable using a firearm, and also teach you how to protect your family.
Absolutely. Good points there. Yeah. So, David, we've both been to Afghanistan. You've probably been to Afghanistan a little bit more than I have.
Okay, yeah, let's go with it. Let's go with that. No, I've been there a couple of times. Let's say I have.
So we talked a little bit about what women are going through in the United States and where they are now. Can you talk a little bit on the rights of women, let's particularly take in the Middle East, and why it's important for women in the United States to take advantage of the opportunity to get trained and to exercise their Second Amendment?
Okay, so I would say in the Middle East, women really don't have rights.
Yeah.
Well, at least from my experience. I'm not saying everywhere
Yeah.
in the Middle East is like that. I'm saying in the countries I went to, women aren't really, they're not equal. Like, even in religion, religion beliefs, they're not equal. Like the woman is not equal to the man. In America, you are equal. Everyone's supposedly is equal, right? I know we can debate that on a different day. But I think that you should take advantage of not just your Second Amendment rights, but all your rights. Anything that you're that you are supposed to be able to do legally, take advantage of it.
For sure.
Because because in reality you can.
For sure.
So your Second Amendment right will give you ability. I will say for me, honestly, I noticed this with people I train. The better you can shoot, for some odd reason, people start shooting and feeling good about themselves shooting. They get a little more self-confidence.
Sure.
They get a little more assured of themselves. That's a big thing that I noticed, at least from I was teaching a class and a woman said to me that she was going to become an instructor and start teaching other women. And the reason she said, because a lot of women have trauma and issues and they don't want to be around a man teaching. So we honestly need more women in the two-way community as instructors teaching, so that way more women feel comfortable coming and actually talking. Because let's be honest, some things a woman wants to talk about her story or why she's got the gun and why she wants to do, she may not feel comfortable telling me.
For sure.
Right.
So it's easier for her to communicate to another woman, like, I'm listening. But it's like when I talk to people and they say, I've talked to people that have lost like kids, and military friends of mine are their kids. So when I'm talking to the parent, I totally understand. I'm empathetic, sympathetic. I understand what they're saying.
For sure.
But I don't understand.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know it hurts and I feel sad and I'm upset. But if you took one of my kids and that was my kid, that would be, then
it's
I
more
would,
personal.
like, the hurt that they're feeling is way past what I truly can comprehend. You see what I mean? The same thing with trauma for women is, I understand the trauma, but I don't understand.
You can sympathize.
Well, that's what empathy is. You can put yourself in their shoes, but you never really walk in them. But you know, you're.
That's the whole thing. I mean, like, so one of my female friends explained it to me this way. She was like, imagine walking out of your door and there's a possibility that you could get raped. Like for me, that would be the worst thing ever. That if I could walk out the door, there's a possibility that I could get raped. You know what I'm saying? And for some women, like, you know, it varies from degree to degree.
Yeah.
That's a very real concern in their mind. What do you think about that?
As a woman who's been there, I have to agree.
Wow.
I mean, it's one of those things. I think anything could happen when we walk out our door. You know, a man could get raped. Anything could happen. You could die from a freak accident in 2 seconds, you know. But a lot of women do live in fear because it's one of those things where, what is the outcome when you get raped? Typically, the victim is blamed. Typically, no one wants, you know, and so now you're afraid. This is why people end up coming to firearms, because it's like, well, who's going to protect me? Because the cops told me I was a liar. The doctor said, you know.
Yeah, and it's victim blaming is a real.
And that's huge.
That's
you know, and that's what you're getting to too with the women with the trauma. That's a big piece of our trauma as well. Is a lot of times women aren't believed, and men aren't either, though, when they're victims of violence as well. But you know, for a woman, once again, you don't have anyone to protect you, and you walk out that door, you got to protect yourself.
What did you do? You did something. I don't know. I just got raped.
It's always someone else's fault. I mean, it's always your fault, not anybody else's fault.
Yeah. So recognizing what our rights are as American citizens is crucial. Understanding that your rights aren't like a suggestion. The right for everyone, according to the Second Amendment, is to own firearms. Really, in my humble opinion, nobody has a right to tell you how to protect yourself or your family. That is it's considered like a God-given right, how you decide to protect your family and your household. So that's really what led me to wearing this hat today. Don't tread on me hat, right? So I'll talk a little bit about that. I wore this hat today because a lot of people consider it to be controversial. But I find what's really interesting in this society is that common sense things are considered controversial. So like, hear me out, don't tread on me. Controversial. Like the concept of don't tread on me is like, hey, don't overreach on my rights as an American. You know what I'm saying? Is that a controversial statement? No. It's like a kind of a common sense statement. And here's another one. I'm just gonna put it out there. Black Lives Matter. That's controversial as hell. Do Black Lives Matter? I think so. Controversial as shit, right? Okay. Make America great again.
I see what you're getting at, though.
Common sense.
The point is statements that in and of themselves are not so much bad, but they become controversial. I see what you're getting at.
And a lot of it is because of politicians. They make them bad, right?
Yes and no.
Explain.
All right. I'm going to get canceled after this statement. But
hey, we made it to 3 episodes. Hey, I'm already winning next week.
I'll roll it. I'll roll the dice on this one. I totally understand the Black Lives Matter movement and what they tried to get across.
Yeah.
I have no problem with what you're saying.
Yeah.
The moment you start breaking into people's stuff, everything you said means nothing to me.
Yeah.
All the crap you went in and went, that was this group and that group. Well, guess what? The problem is when you let that group walk with you, I assume it's your group that did
by
this.
association.
So guess what? As soon as you start damaging other people's stuff, you're breaking the law.
And you are 2,000,000% right.
And now I'm like, hey, you know what? Black Lives Matter movement, bad movement. Because you crossed the line. If you would have just walked and did what you walked and actually went in and protested, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I'm for that.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm also for, hey, don't break into my stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm also for once you start damaging the community, then guess what? We're not a community now.
And I think
because the same store you damage is the same store you're going to come to try to buy something.
I think a lot of it is the statements in themselves they're like innocent statements.
Yeah, common sense.
Common sense statements. Yeah. But I believe that like nefarious persons kind of warp the statement. You see what I'm saying?
Their agenda. What's their agenda behind
it? Agenda and perception.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
That's what it all comes down to. Agenda and perception.
Yeah.
So I can take the nicest statement in the world, "I love you," for instance.
Yeah, and then
I can turn it into a whole other thing by just changing how you view it.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think a lot that has kind of definitely had to have an impact on how people perceive firearms. So a lot of people, when they think about firearms, they're thinking about, you're going to regret it, and you're going to shoot up a school, or you're going to shoot up your wife, or you're going to, you know what I'm saying? It immediately goes to the negative.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And it in itself is really just a tool for self-defense. Because put it this way. If everybody with a gun in America was shooting up schools, we'd have a problem. Would we or would we not?
Way bigger than the one we already got.
We have a massive problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I feel like that's what I wanted to achieve with Carolina Ballistics and Training Academy. And that is just to insert knowledge and bring back kind of like common sense conversation. So like statements can be innocuous, but we have to recognize it's not the statements that are innocuous, it's the negative connotations, I guess, that comes with it.
It's the actions.
Yeah.
It's the actions taken by the individuals that make the statement.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And there's your problem. It's the actions that the individuals take.
Yeah.
I think since we're on this topic, it's going to stir me down another rabbit hole. All right. And this is something that I felt was a problem when this happened, since we're on the topic, is we went from the Black Lives Matter movement to defund the police movement.
Yeah.
And I thought that was totally not a good move.
Yeah.
And not because I think all police are great. No, I am not saying that in the least. But I pose this question to you guys. Let's say 25% of police are bad people.
Okay.
25%. Should we defund them for that? I think that's a high number, but we're saying 1 out of every 4 police is a bad guy. All you have to tell me is yes or no. Would you defund them?
So
Yes,
Okay.
but I'm not defunding the 25 the small percentage of bad people. I'm defunding the entire system.
Yes, okay. So now my question becomes, 1 in 4 black males have been to prison. Should we all be locked up?
That's not the same.
It's 25%. It's just the numbers now when I flip it don't match what
That
you
isn't the
what you
same
want.
because that's not a system.
Wouldn't we say that incarceration is a system?
Yes, but you being black itself is not a system, but being a cop that's a whole
Okay,
different
so
system.
why not put you in that system, right? Like,
But
hey,
defunding the police doesn't mean we get. See, this is the problem I had with it.
Yes,
no
I
one was
wanna hear it.
clarifying what defund the police meant.
yeah, that's why
All right,
I'm
so
asking.
and
that's where we gotta
especially
start.
people that were in the BLM movement, like you literally had there was like a group of people, and there was a whole like interview, and you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. There was a whole interview. And I think it was something like Trevor Noah. And he was like, so what do you mean defund the police? And then she was talking about the systematic aggression. But another guy right beside her said, I want to completely cancel the police.
Exactly.
Right?
That's
And
the
I'm
problem.
like, whoa.
Because people are literal. If
Yeah.
I tell you defund the police, well, they
Yeah.
think we're taking the money directly from the cops,
All
no
the
more
police.
cops. And then there was the whole argument, well, if you take all the cops, who's going to protect you when something
Yeah.
happens? But that's
Yeah.
not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about a reallocation of funds.
Yeah.
But no one's saying that that's what they're talking
Yeah,
about.
taking
it
the
should
money from
probably
here and putting it
change.
here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not
Yeah.
defund the police.
Yeah.
It's refund the programs that were used to fund
So
the
I
police.
mean,
Okay.
like ultimately, I feel like the conversation
That would make sense.
That makes
falls
more sense.
under the subject of criminal justice reform. You know what I'm saying? Criminal justice reform is not like a controversial conversation, but how I guess defund the police was brought to society. It just appeared like it was just like a radical thing. Like, are we all just going to be like in the Wild West? And
But that's back to what you just said
which is
before.
completely fine for me. But I mean, like,
Is everyone else
It's a
okay with
statement that in itself ain't really that bad, but if you don't know what it means,
Exactly.
it got perceived
exactly.
to mean something totally different. People ran with it, and they ran with it
pretty
crazy
hard?
Exactly.
That's why I was like,
Yeah,
whoa,
they-
this
Yeah.
is extreme.
But the ones who knew what it meant, they weren't the ones yelling at the loudest.
Yeah,
It's the ones who really didn't know what it meant that were
true,
out there saying
because
it.
the ones that actually can sit down and have a conversation and actually be like, hey, let's have a dialogue about this. We don't get the they don't
get
put
the-
that on
yeah.
Fox News.
Right.
Yeah.
The person that
Well, no.
actually will have a conversation and be
Yeah.
like, look, you have some good points and I have some good points. Let's
Yeah.
find the middle.
Yeah.
That's not interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not click-worthy.
Nah.
Definitely not click-worthy.
Yep.
But yeah, I really thought that was an interesting thing, especially in connection with the media, especially social media. And that is something that I'm noticing a lot is that the more radical, more ignorant statements are usually the ones that are getting the most attention. You know what I'm saying? So a little thing on TikTok that our social media advisor Darius has recognized, and that was that our gun education, some of our gun education videos were straight up getting removed from TikTok.
Ooh, don't get me started on that.
Straight up. Like a couple of our videos on TikTok have just been straight up removed, and they said that, of course, community and guidelines. That's what they have said
Yeah,
multiple
and then
times.
you go and you search it and you find the exact
yeah.
same thing or worse.
Yeah, somewhere else.
10 million
Yeah.
views.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the big thing that I've noticed in connection with our media is that we're in a spot in which radicalization is it's like the social norm in our society, and like intelligence and intelligent dialogue is kind of like, nah, that's not click worthy. Get that out of here.
Okay. I can get you.
I think most things come down to control.
Yeah.
The media is here to control a narrative.
Yeah.
Fear is control.
Oh yeah.
If I teach you how to use a gun and tell you that having a gun in your home actually won't make you, more likely to have X, Y, and Z happen, it might help you, blah, blah, blah. Sounds good. And now you're thinking, I might go and buy a firearm.
Yeah.
That goes against half of the agenda of the politicians. So, what we're working against is not just the media working against politics were working against opinions.
Oh, yeah.
So don't even get me started on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
I told you that was going to happen.
TikTok is, yeah, you did. You called it.
I warned you before you started because I've been there. But
that thing,
oh
man,
they
canceled David. They turned his whole account off.
Well, I told you, we posted
Yeah.
something very simple, just showing backpacks and what to put on there, and same thing happens. But they don't. Fear does not sell.
Yeah.
Fear is what gets you killed, but at the same time, fear is like monetary.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I don't know if y'all are tracking the Mark Zuckerberg, like Facebook was being sued. I think it was like 2 years ago or a year ago, and it was basically the whistleblower came out and said that Mark Zuckerberg was basically influencing the election. Facebook was influencing the election. So like if you were left leaning, they would just flood your timeline with right leaning stuff. And if you're right leaning, they would flood your timeline with left leaning stuff because they realize the easiest emotion to replicate is being triggered. You know what I'm saying? So like when we see the last election, and like record breaking amount of people are voting, and that's just because all those people are looking at their social media and getting triggered. So like people who would have never voted are now voting because they are now motivated by social media, which honestly influenced why some people got 1 million votes.
I mean, social media is the media.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be all we had was newspapers and the news on TV and whatever. Social media is a quick way to get a message across, and especially the younger you are, the easier it is. Well, I'll say the younger or the older, the further in that spectrum, the easier you are to brainwash pretty much with the use of ads and campaigns on social media.
Yeah, and I think there was a study done a while ago, and they were talking about where people get their information, and it's something like 75% of people don't even use like scholarly references. They just
no, not at all.
Google search it or Wikipedia search it, or they look at
or regurgitate it, because that's pretty much all it is.
Yeah. So like you'll literally, this happened a while ago, and I was talking to a person about a specific event, and they literally said word for word, which came out of a news outlet. And the only reason why I knew was because like it came on my timeline, and I was like, that's crazy. And I just kept scrolling. And then the person said the exact same thing, and I was like, are you listening to my timeline? And a lot of people, that's literally how they determine their thought process, is whatever news outlet or media source that they subscribe to.
Right.
Which makes people controllable, sadly.
Because unfortunately, they're also biased as well.
Yeah.
So if you already subscribe to that, they're going to continue feeding you that. You're not going to get the whole story of anything.
No.
And then most people, we don't want to do the extra research because that's work.
Yeah.
And like the extra work.
The actual facts of things are like not even like interesting. So here you go. I'm gonna give y'all a statistic that they said. So everybody, in connection with budget, they'd be like, oh, America owes trillions of dollars to China. We're all gonna be screwed because we owe China all this money. Y'all know where the majority of our debt is? We owe ourselves. The majority of our debt goes to Social Security. Old people get the majority of our debt, and like public services that the government offers. Like you go to the emergency room and you have something wrong with you. The emergency room has to treat you,
right?
Even though you might not pay. You might not pay. You know what I'm saying? Like I think we owe we owe China, last time I checked, was like, $5 trillion, which is a lot of money. Yeah, but it's like our debt isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily based upon, I think a lot of Americans see debt as if like, if I owe David $10, then that means David can collect that $10.
Coming from me.
Yeah, he's going to come from me. And that's not at all how like the American budget operates. But
that's how the American government operates. Exactly. So we think that's how we think money works.
That's how it works. Yeah. So like the left would be like, so all these free government handouts, that's what's collapsing the economy. And then the right is like, so all these bailouts for these corporations, that's what's collapsing the economy. And when the reality is it's all these old people. That's what's collapsing the economy. I wanted to put that in there. All right.
Yo.
So yeah,
That's partly true though.
yeah, it is 100% true.
Because when Social Security was created, the average lifespan was what, 52, 53?
Yeah.
Now the average lifespan is 82.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's more older people drawing in on that budget. But the flip side of that is other issues like all the subsidizing that we do as a government on families and everything else. And then the flip side of that is one of the biggest things we did that probably hurt us was making prisons actual private entities where people can make money from. And that also now is helping with pulling. Personally, I think that helps pull a lot of men out of the households and take them away from families.
Yeah. That's a whole nother podcast.
And we will cover that in future episodes. But yeah, I guess a big thing that we really wanted, we did go down a rabbit hole. And
but okay, let me bring us back.
That's 100% my fault.
Keep us
the rise of women in firearms. So I'm curious, since you guys obviously have way more experience than I do, what advice do you give for women who are interested in starting? You know, where can they find the knowledge they need to start? Because people don't start because they don't know where to start. So what would you suggest is a good place to start?
My first thing, and I don't care who's buying a weapon, like woman or man, like that doesn't matter. I ask what you're going to do with it.
Right.
That's my first thing. Like, hey, what do you want this gun? Like, because different weapons provide different things, and if you're saying, hey, I want it to be able to conceal it, certain guns, as soon as you said that, I'm like, okay, these aren't going to work for me.
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing is these are the 5 guns that I would look at. Now you need to go to a gun shop and actually put your hands on them and see which one feels good in your hand.
I think that's and I'm happy that you asked that question. I'm happy that you explained it like that, because a lot of people, when they're asked that question, they get offensive, like, well, I just want it. You know what I'm saying? They take it offensively. Yeah. But it's a like from a right place, it's the right question. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you just want, like, a home defense gun, you know what I'm saying, you probably shouldn't necessarily have double barrel shotgun.
A sawed-off shotgun.
You know what I'm saying? Just because, if you
do you ask the mechanic why he's using the wrench? I mean, there's a reason for every tool. A firearm is a tool. What are you using for is a great question to start with, because at the end of the day, if I don't want it for home defense, what am I using it for? I just want to go out and shoot and learn. Okay, that's something totally different.
Then you can use this gun. A Glock 19 would be great for that. Or if you said to me, hey, I want it to be a competition gun, I would say, okay, we're not going with a Glock 19 because that's not the best gun for that. These guns are better.
What would you say the right gun for, like, a bedside table?
Oh, so shameless plug on me, but I'm just saying, if you notice the hat, you guys, no, I'm go to Co Firearms if you want.
Lord have mercy.
No, I'm joking.
Put the shot out.
I'm joking. So I know for me, I keep a Glock 19 by the side of my bed loaded, and then I had a Staccato C concealed.
That's a 2011?
Yeah, it's 2011. I had a Staccato C on my side. My wife had the Glock 19. And that, on my side right now, by my bed, is a Glock 19 fully loaded with a long 32 round clip.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think I would ever need 32 rounds, but just in case. A lot of missing going on.
Rather have it, not need it, but
especially
need it,
when your family's in line, you nervous.
So that's what I keep.
That's overkill with your family.
And I'll be honest, like, another thing is I believed, and like I told you before, my son could disassemble and reassemble, and he needed a little help with the Glock, like pulling the slide at first. When he was like 8 or 9, he understood it and all that stuff, and I had it on the side of my bed. I didn't put it, like, I think you should. I have every other gun in a safe and put away, but I kept one by my bed, and I was like, hey, that's so if something happens, I can go, because reality is, if it's for protection and it's in a safe,
what do you protect?
Well, now me and this guy is in a race to the safe.
So, like, that is so, like, the safe concept, I believe, is like, it's like the right answer.
Well, it's a bunch of different types of safes, so I don't want to just say any safe.
I'm not going to delve
too. You're saying the right answer, like, where are your guns? That's,
you know what I'm saying? So, like, if you own a firearm in the state of North Carolina, all your firearms should be in safes.
Locked up.
Yeah, locked up, right?
Scratch that, everything I said.
Exactly. So Therefore, I'm gonna change that line of conversation.
No,
but you know what is important? A lady
honest.
told a story about she was at a friend's house.
Yeah.
They got robbed. Didn't know the guy was in the house.
Yeah.
Went into the friend's bedroom. Gun safe wasn't locked. The man took the gun and shot her in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Killed the friend. You know, so make sure you're locking your stuff up at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it has to be readily
It has to be accessible.
It has to be readily
Don't put it in your
accessible.
basement and think that you're gonna protect your family.
So like there's different options like biometrics.
Oh yeah, no, there's a ton of different stuff you can
your
use.
best friend, Mr. Kennedy, supports biometrics big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a ton of different safes you can use. The one I have is not feasibly even close enough. Mine's in my garage locked up and nothing. So I'm not getting to
But those
that.
aren't the guns that you're trying to pull out when someone breaks in. That's readily available to you.
Yeah.
So
then I would say if you're not going to be at home, I would remove the mag and you could keep them separate. You could do something, but you need to be able to readily access that if something happens.
Yeah, because the big point is that like you have no idea when like a burglar's coming. You know what I'm saying? A robber. You know, if the Bible talks about like a thief in the night, you don't know when they're coming. So they already got the jump on you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So what you're worried about is the time of your reaction to address the threat. You know what I'm saying? And that's a really important point in connection with what your choice of home defense weapon is. So like if you're like, it's going to be a bat or it's going to be a sledgehammer or if it's going to be a gun or if it's going to be a knife, you have to understand that you don't know what's happening. You could be, in the shower, changing your clothes, you know what I'm saying? And something has happened, dead asleep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like for me, when it comes to like security, like I have a dog, I have cameras, I got motion sensors, you know what I'm saying? So like I have a lot of things to alarm me that something is about to happen,
But let's be real. People who are watching you, who want to harm you, they're not worried about most of that stuff.
Yeah. So yes, but it's about alarming you.
And that's what I'm getting at, though.
Yeah.
So in being prepared, taking it back to what we're talking about, being prepared, you're gonna have all those things. But someone who wants to do you harm, they want to do you harm.
Yeah. So, and that's what you just said is what I was gonna say exactly. Is most criminals are opportunists, right? I'm coming and it's an opportunity. If you can have all the security you want, if I'm coming to get you. I'm coming to get you. Yeah. Like it is no like, hey, I got 2 dogs and some cameras. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I'm gonna shoot the dog on the way in too. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, but if they shoot the dog, you're gonna hear it.
But see, here's the thing though, it's the psychology of a psychopath, right? So a person who wants to do harm doesn't care what gets in their way to get to you.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about women and firearms, a woman wants to protect their household or their children. A person who's coming to kill you, harm you, rob you, whatever, will go through your child to get to whatever they need to.
Yeah.
They'll go through that dog to get to whatever they need to.
Yeah. It's like we can say that to me what it sounds like is just saying restraining orders, right? If that's the case, how we're saying, hey, I put security in place and that's going to make sure that's to deter people from what I'm understanding with women that have been through trauma, right? Like sometimes that guy's coming regardless. Yeah. You got a restraining order, right? Yeah, like you got a restraining order. I don't know the statistics on this. There'll be something to look up. How much is usually crimes are done by people they know, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, and I don't know the statistics. So, but if that's the case, then he already has thought he's going to do it. So at that point, you're saying, hey, I got a restraining order on him. Well, then if that's the case, then that was enough security for you. Right. Chances are he's coming anyway. No.
Let me tell you, a restraining order don't stop nothing.
No.
Okay.
No, it just helps them get more time, I guess,
if
when
anything,
it's done.
it angers people. 9 times out of 10, restraining orders are not upheld. I can give you some personal experience in dealing with people with that, where, children are victims of stuff, but if you don't have proof, I wasn't recording, this person hurting my kid or hurting me when it happened, so you don't have proof, the restraining order gets thrown out. Now the person's just angry because you've taken this out on them, so... Like I said, people who want to come through, they're gonna.
It's something we're not just go ahead.
And according to your statement, the FBI actually comments on that subject in connection with how many people are actually killed by people that they know. The FBI, according to 2017, said 28% of all homicides are done according to people that they knew. That includes family members.
A lot of times it's domestic.
Acquaintances, boyfriends, spouses, and only 9% are killed by strangers.
So most violent crimes are going to be someone you know.
Absolutely. That's and I think we actually talked on that on our first episode.
Yeah, we mentioned it.
Yeah, about if a man and a woman, man dies, the first person they looking at is the wife. You know, that's a very real world that we live in. So like, if there's a chance of you getting robbed or killed, it's probably somebody in your neighborhood.
That's what they always say. Be careful when you bring it to your house. You probably saw that big TV you brought in.
So I have a question, and this is on topic and off topic at the same time. What I mean is, women with firearms and defending themselves is a big deal. But a question I have, and I'm just throwing it out there, and it's for you. You said you had a child, everything. You didn't give us the age of your daughter. I'm sorry.
She's 11.
11. So something, and I'm going to speak from a child of domestic violence, like watching my mom be beaten and everything, and she left that situation when I at 12 fought the man that was beating her. That's when she decided that was done.
Wow.
Like, we were there for 3 years, so until I stood up and did something about it, she kept going back to that guy. And my question to you is, what do you think the psychological stuff that is done to kids with that? And I'm not saying, it's about women defending themselves,
you're
but
absolutely
the
right.
kids.
Whenever I speak about women and firearms, I speak about women and children, because 9 times out of 10, a woman who's interested in firearms is because they have a family. It's detrimental. The hardest thing to do, whether you're male or female, is to leave someone you care for. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, good or bad. Yeah. That emotion, it makes it hard for us to separate. You would hope that seeing something happen to your kids would be enough, but most times, whatever's going on mentally, you can't differentiate harming me and my child from this person being good or bad. That's a whole nother thing of the psychological issues of a woman who's been abused, a woman who's had some kind of trauma. 9 times out of 10, she's going back. Yeah. A woman can get beat and go to the hospital. What she's going to do? She's going to probably lie about who put their hands on her. She's going to say she fell down the steps. She's going to, that broken wrist is, it was my fault. Because it's easier to do that, than to deal with the repercussions of admitting that you are a victim. Yeah. Nobody likes the word victim. All right. Okay. When we throw that out there, male or female, we don't like to hear that because it makes us feel weak. And when we talk about women getting firearms, we're talking about putting the power back into their hands. Yeah. I'm not telling you to be violent, but sometimes the only way to stop violence is to be more violent. Yeah. Okay, if someone's coming in here to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you first. Yeah. The first thing someone asked me when I wanted a gun was, what are you going to use it for, and are you prepared to use it? And I said, hell yeah. Am I allowed to say hell here? Absolutely. But that was my whole point was, I was in a situation where my life was threaten my child's life, and I could care less about me. When you threaten my kid, though, when her life became an issue, I will shoot whoever comes in there. But if you're not prepared mentally for that, it's worse than not having a gun at all.
Yeah, sure.
So that's the other thing too. We're talking about training.
For sure.
Having a firearm is not just going to Sports Academy or whatever and buying the first little pistol you can find.
It's the worst place to go.
Cheap prices.
Yeah.
That's what everybody sees. But, for people, they go and they buy a firearm and that's it. Yeah. I've got it now and I'm safe. And they go and they throw it on the top shelf in their closet and they hope their kid doesn't find it. Yeah. But the reality is buying a firearm is you have to be mentally prepared. You need to be physically prepared. If you can't get up and chase that person, what's that gun going to do? For sure. Because if they run around that corner, you're not going to shoot that wall to hit them. So we're talking about preparing every area of your life when you have a firearm. Yeah. Going back to the mental issues, when we're in that mindset of we've been through something mentally, you're not ready for a firearm. Yeah. You're not.
Especially going through trauma. And if you haven't repaired from that trauma. Oh yeah. It's gonna. Yeah.
Y'all in the military, you know what PTSD looks like. Oh yeah. And PTSD can stem from fighting overseas to fighting at home. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the effects will look exactly the same. Yeah. And so putting a firearm into the hands of someone in that state, like when I was in my depressed state dealing with my bad relationship, I should have never had a gun. It was a good thing I didn't have a gun because where my mind was at was so low, I'd be afraid of what I would have did with it. Not to somebody else, but to myself. Yeah. But no one wants to talk about the realities of you got to be mentally prepared to have that gun.
Well, guys, this was an incredible conversation. We have gone well over time, and I am happy for that, guys. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Yeah. This is my co-host, David. I'm Daniel, and this is the lovely Brie Neville. She graced us with her presence, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
That was awesome.
trained at Carolina Ballistics and Training Academy.
Get trained at Carolina Ballistics and Training Academy.
Get trained at Carolina Ballistics and Training Academy.